Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me this week is Jim Strain, Director of Cultivation and Head Grower at Dykar Pharmaceuticals. Thank you very much for joining me today, Jim.
Yeah, right on. Thanks a lot for having me, David.
Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Jim, I want to start off by saying best background ever. You've done about 90 of these. You're by far and away the winner.
Oh, so thank you for the accolade.
I always like to start by learning a little bit about your background. What was it that brought you to cannabis?
I've been at this a long time. Brought me to cannabis was literally graduating from high school, being a consumer of herb, and decided to become a grower at the age of 19. So I've been growing for a little over 34 years now. Obviously in a different market environment that we're in right now, but I've transitioned to this one.
With more than 30 years of experience cultivating, how has the industry changed and how have you evolved with it professionally?
Well, are we discussing the industry in Canada or the US or globally?
For you personally.
Oh, for me personally, sure. It was a massive change for me, obviously. Coming into a pretty heavily bureaucratic system, quality laden and compliance laden, paperwork laden system coming from a gray market or black market background, was getting jobs done a lot more efficiently, I thought, but we're in a new system with a lot of rules and regulations. I think I said just last week in a meeting, we were on a Zoom, we had a lot of people in there, and I think my joke was, I can't believe how many people it takes to sell a bag of grass now.
I mean, you joke, but it's the honest truth right now.
It kind of is the honest truth. I'm partially joking with it all, but the amount of people or hands that touch this now, all from transport companies, the compliance, the stickers, the packaging companies. I mean, everybody's got their hand in your jar now, for sure.
No, the operational costs are just astronomical. So it's almost... Do you think it's better for somebody to get into cannabis with no previous experience in another industry just because of the overhead?
That would be the same for any industry, honestly. I wouldn't go into concrete pouring. I don't know shit about it. For me to go start off on oil drilling, like I actually joke, let's say the top shareholder in our company is from an oil and gas background. Mm. My analogy is for me to start an oil company and go drill wells with no geology degree. The people, staff in place, not able to drill wells. So no, I don't think. And if you do decide that you're going to jump into this business, make sure you bring along some people that have really been through all these pitfalls before. They can save you a lot of headache in deciding where to put your facility and what equipment to put in it. I've seen stuff ripped out. I've seen stuff built in the wrong location. Period. They have single phase power, or they have to drill a well for water. I mean, you got to really look at the basics, and you better know what your demands are going to be in that facility, and even for your expansion plans.
Well, and with issues like that coming up in an expanding industry with sort of a lack of native talent, do you find yourself in high demand as a master grower?
Yeah, I suppose that would be the case. I find myself a bit of a rarity in the industry, somebody who's survived 33 years in the industry without having been examined closely or fingerprinted. Let's put it, how do I friendly put this? Fingerprinted or seen the inside of a courtroom, which enables me, of course, to maneuver around the country, be security cleared with Health Canada, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So many of my peers did not have, although they're similarly equipped, they didn't have the background legitimacy to follow through, I suppose, into the new path here.
How were you able to survive 35 years?
Being very careful, keeping my mouth shut mostly.
How did you get involved with Dykar?
life in its funny circumstances of chance on a plane with some people. I met one of the board of directors. We were on a trip to Jamaica. Um, it was a cannabis-centric trip where a bunch of investors were on a jet going there to look at an operation down there. My buddy owned the jet, and he invited me along on the trip as an afterthought. I ended up meeting one of the board of directors there. Kind of told him my experience, and especially in that I'm an aeroponics aficionado and specialist is very rare in cannabis growing, and somebody who's done it for decades as well is also rare. So when I heard they were doing an aeroponics facility here, I said, "Wow, you brave! Good for you. You guys really must have it dialed or know what you're doing." And they were like, "No, we don't. Can you come look at it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll come look at it." But so when I came looked at it at the facility, I pointed out some glaring deficiencies um, in their operation, their design, and wished them luck. And then they were kind of at that point said, "Well, I think we really need your experience." I said, "Well, yeah, you probably do, to be blunt, but I'm not looking for a job. I was quite happy where I was at, et cetera, et cetera." But hey, here I am now. Now I've got a 20-person staff. We've got 8 flowering rooms, 4 veg cloner rooms, a mother room, a very large genetic bank that I brought with me on board of Dykar when I came in. Health Canada allowed this one-time exemption, and I brought with me about 200 unique strains. 50,
Wow.
60 of them in mother plant form, and the other 60 are in seed form across 1,200, 1,400 seeds. And now we've got a breeding program, so we're also breeding. So we've got thousands and thousands more seeds. We've got a lifetime worth of work to do in pheno hunting and strain development.
So, how many years ago did you come to Dykar, and what were some of those deficiencies that you saw when you first toured?
Let's see, almost 4 years ago, I came here, or first met them rather, and I came on board with them. We've only been operating here for 1 year. So this facility that you see behind me has been literally, it was January of last year when we first planted the first room. So the first couple of years were building out the facility and doing our first small grows downstairs in phase 1. We grew in Health Canada, we had to grow 2 crops and pass testing on both to get licensed. So what we did is just grew 2, let's say, 10 light rooms or 20 light rooms. I think they were 2 of those crops. And they're basically for destruction. You got to prove that you can do it without pesticides, without heavy metals, without microbials. You get that, and then you get your licensing. So now at this point, Dykar is fully licensed. We have every license within the Health Canada regime, including cannabis 2.0 products like edibles, vapes. So in our facility, we do we grow, obviously behind me. We make whole flower pre-rolls. We make vapes. So we have a CO2 extraction lab downstairs, supercritical CO2. We use that for making our edibles, of course, as well, making distillate. We make some full spec extraction. So we're kind of in a unique spot, I think. Maybe not unique, but it's a nice spot to be in where we're vertically integrated here, that we make all of our products on site. We make our own gummies. We make our own chocolate, our caramels. We don't white label. We don't send it out to somebody, say, hey, make this for us and put our name on it. So yeah, it's been 3 years. Yeah.
Was that important to you that everything was grown and manufactured in-house?
I think so. Yeah, to me, it absolutely is, because it's how we keep control. And also, everything eats away at cost. And we talked about earlier with all the nickels and dimes coming out of your pocket, all of the burdens of these things. So it's pretty hard to use third party or white label and actually make any money.
How long have you been working with aeroponics?
Oh shit, a long time. I literally in 1989 I started growing cannabis, and I'd like to point out to the younger viewers, this was before the internet, and that makes me sound like a fucking dinosaur. But hey, there was no internet, there was no YouTube or Google or anything. It was a lot of trial and error, and I literally built a drip hydroponic system. So first of all, hydroponics is the broader umbrella term for water-based systems. Aeroponics is a niche within hydroponics. It is a specific style of growing. So my first hydroponic system was buckets and drip tubing and pump and roots or water. I never did really like mediums. And believe me, I've grown in mediums. I've grown in soil, soilless, living soil, rock wool, leca, cocoa, perlite, fucking all of it. So, medium, like everything has pros and cons. But aeroponics was my choice, and I'll tell you a couple, honest admissions here. Of course, back in 1990, with it being illegal, and you're in a house, bringing dirt into a house through the door is kind of suspicious. Bringing big bags of soil and cocoa and rock wool, and then hauling that shit out after a crop. So learning how to grow with only air and water was an advantageous viewpoint I held for that era of time. But now that I'm here in this, new era, it's no longer required, but it's still truckloads of medium that come in and out of facilities, and especially when it's scale. Like if you're growing in rock wool or cocoa or anything that you're discarding, which most people are, unless you're living soil, you're not. But otherwise, you're discarding your medium every cycle. So you're both sending trucks to the landfill and you're bringing in medium a lot, and it's expensive. The aeroponics I've been at, then true aeroponic systems I started building in the early 90s, probably around 93. Different iterations, sewer pipes on an angle, on workbenches and spinners, and different levels of aeroponics. You can have low pressure systems or high pressure systems. A low pressure system is like 6 or 8 or 10 psi, and high pressure systems, which I have both of actually here. And those are running about 200 psi for our high pressure aerocloning that we do. So yeah, I've been around aeroponics for quite a while, over 2 decades.
You said that you designed it. Did you design all the aeroponics that you have at Dykar now?
No, the aeroponic system that we have here now is built in California by a company called Essence, spelled with an A at the beginning, so it's like a Greek spelling of essence. It's a very robust aeroponic system. So you could design and build your own, but honestly, we're in the business of growing cannabis. We didn't, that's a lot of work on its own. That's a separate thing entirely. They provided a very robust, well-designed aeroponic system that the company liked. When I came aboard them, I basically said, yeah, I approve of it with some changes. Back to your earlier question, what were the deficiencies? They didn't have chillers. So water chillers are going to be an essential component to aeroponics, or basically any hydroponics, honestly, deep water culture or otherwise. You need to maintain chilled water in your loop. My analogy is something like a hot tub or swimming pool. If you were a recirculating system, if you don't have a powerful sanitant, you breed disease really quickly. Bacteria, you wouldn't get in a hot tub that's been running for a couple of days with no bromine. So we use this. I'll actually try and show you some of that equipment here, but it's a really nice aeroponic system. The rows roll apart. This is kind of
okay.
As it goes. So as you can see, all these tubs are daisy chained all the way down. We have 9 tubs in a row.
Oh yeah.
They're all connected to one matriarch tub. So this reservoir in here, I'm not sure you can see, but that's one independent living system. So that row of plants has its own reservoir, dosers, pH controlled, temperature controlled, EC, everything on its own separate. So therefore, we have some redundancy in the room. I have 6 rows in this room behind me. If something goes wrong in one row, it's only one row.
Mm-hmm.
All the others are independently controlled. So there's pros and cons to that as well. Decentralizing your system makes a lot more plumbing and piping and tubing. As you can see behind me, all that hosing that comes down from the ceiling, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are all electrical and water connections.
Right.
And as well as ozone, to be frank. So that was kind of my secret recipe here. What made this successful is the aeroponics. The reason aeroponics is so difficult is because it's a recirculating system. Most of the industry grows in a style called drain to waste.
Mm-hmm.
So drain to waste means you've got your plants in a bucket or whatever on the table, you have a dripper going to it, dripping on that. It's single pass through the root zone and drains to waste down the drain. We recirculate this nutrient solution for 7 to 10 days. So we reuse 40 gallons, and it's continually redosing itself, topping up water, adding nutrient or whatnot. But without a robust sanitation system in there, we quickly breed bacteria and then get root rot or pythium.
Do you prefer having it decentralized versus having it all coming from one area?
Oh, that's a tough one. You got me on that one. I think I would prefer. I think maybe the best for me would be room to room decentralization. This is you can break it down row to row. It's upfront, a lot more cost, and then of course there's more solenoids to check, more doser pumps to check. There's more, but I will say that Essence has built a really robust system. Hey, like everything, it's still the more complex you make it, the more. My analogy is this: we have a Ferrari, but I need a Ferrari mechanic here on site. You can't take it to Volkswagen or GM. So we've got a Ferrari of a system. We have a really skilled, engineer, I suppose, technician who knows the system. Well, so do I. We built these together. We assembled them all and troubleshoot them. But it is some troubleshooting. So I suppose I would probably put it decentralized into one room and have each room on its day tank, perhaps, but not in the room, of course, because it warms up your water. So this is when I go back to system design. If I could have a facility that wasn't built yet, you're talking about a pad hasn't been poured. Wow, you could really do it right without buying a shell or an existing warehouse and trying to put all your stuff in there and knowing what to put in and what systems you're going to go with.
Because aeroponics sounds onerous. And it sounds like very finely tuned, almost like a high-end watch. Is it once you have it up and running, it's kind of second to none? Is that the differentiator for aeroponics?
Yeah, it is. I have, as I mentioned earlier, I've grown in everything. Yeah. Aeroponics eclipses growth rates in any other system, other than maybe deep water culture. So deep water culture is a similar premise. The roots are just suspended in water instead of suspended in air. But the growth rates of veg time are prolific. Most of my cultivars, my veg time is anywhere from 3 to 7 or 10 days. And a lot of other facilities, our veg time is 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. I know this to be a fact. So I think the biggest difference is it's cutting out your veg time and you get tremendous rapid growth, but consistency also. Like once I write a grow plan, so that's how nice the system is, that I have all these tabs and I tell it, okay, day 1 to 6, I want this EC, this temperature, this whatever. This for this. So I write a strain specific grow plan. And it's, let's say 7 days of veg, 8 weeks of flower, and I tell it to flush in the last 5 days on water or whatever I write. Once I hit start, it just runs. It runs through that grow plan. So there's no human interaction on those reservoirs, which is nice because that's where the fuck ups occur usually with people splash and dash. Ooh, put too much pH down in. Now the pH rocketed down. Oh, I'm bringing it back up. Overcorrecting. So manually dosing, obviously completely gone. Now my staff can concentrate on crop work on the plants instead of dealing with the root zone realistically. That's all automated. And by the way, I'm going to show you the root zone here shortly too, which is freaking incredible. I consider myself a root farmer, honestly.
Did I hear you say that you also use ozone?
Yes.
Why did you choose to use ozone?
Well, okay, so namely, number one is obviously we can't use any pesticides whatsoever, no chemicals, which is great. I'm a big fan of that. And when I grew in the black market, I like using that because I smoke my own weed. So you can't dump anything in the reservoir that's going to be an antifungal or anti-germicide or bactericide or whatever. Your choices are kind of hypochlorous acid, chlorine, or some sort of chlorine sanitizer. Ozone worked really well for us when we looked at it because ozone is O3. Once that third atom of oxygen goes and does its job oxidizing an organic molecule, it degrades to O2. And O2 is really beneficial to your root zone. So oxygen, the byproduct of the ozone, when it finishes doing its job, what you're left with is just oxygen. And there is no residue. There's no chemical residue. We don't have to flush anything out. It's literally deteriorated into oxygen. It's a really powerful sanitant as well. It's far more powerful than chlorine or hypochlorous acid or chlorine dioxide. It literally kills everything, everything. With that nice benefit of it oxidizing the water, driving up the dissolved DO. So we measure with some meters. We have ORP meters and dissolved oxygen content meters. We know what the state of our nutrient solution is.
You said that you consider yourself a root farmer. Let's see the roots.
Yeah, let's have a look at some roots.
Whoa. So for the people that aren't watching the video, watching the audio version, what are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at nice white, nice white, crisp, healthy roots in plants that are, 4 weeks into flower. Here's a nice root mat in there. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's beautiful.
So we're looking at, an aeroponic root system. Sorry, it's a little, I should have used my phone for this one instead of the laptop.
You are navigating wonderfully, given the circumstances. Yeah, no, I really appreciate showing us around the room a little bit. That's a first as well. It's very informative.
So a root farmer, yeah, absolutely. Here's the bottom line, and this is kind of an old grandpa saying, but take care of the roots, they'll take care of the fruits. What I like about the aeroponics is I can see my roots. I know when things are about to go wrong, or if I get an advanced warning of the plant. If you're growing in soil, or you're growing in cocoa, or whatever, you can't see your roots. You can't tell what the roots are doing. You can't tell the health of them. I get early, whatever is going to happen to your plants is happening in the root zone first. Mm-hmm. Believe me. So when I can monitor the roots and also deliver nutrients really rapidly. For example, if we do leaf tissue analysis, now let's say I have a boron deficiency or a calcium deficiency or whatever, I can basically put it to that root zone immediately, and I can also take it away immediately. So flushing excesses out is really important. So, for example, overfeeding is probably a pretty common problem in a lot of facilities. That's why they flush. I don't have that issue.
You had mentioned that Dykar has a mix of edibles, vapes, and flower. Is JR strain named after you?
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome.
They did. I fed my ego a little bit for sure. I mean, so what happened is we went through the exercises here with a marketing agency. In Canada, we said we're creating some brands. What do they recommend? And like up on the screen here today on the Zoom, my name is displayed, Jim Strain. And they're like, "But are you fucking serious? Who is this guy who named his? Why is he Strain? Like, what's his real name?" Yeah. And my president of the company says, "No, that's his real name. Born with this name. I'm actually a junior. My old man is James Strain." So I'm James Richard Strain, and the marketing company said, "Well, you guys got quite the interesting story, the background through the legacy market, legacy years. I mean, I was literally kind of the personal weed supplier for the Black Eyed Peas whenever they came to Canada. They've been to my house so many times. We've smoked out their concerts. As soon as they land in Canada, call me up, Jimmy, fucking blaze us up." And I would go to the backstage with them on tour, been on tour with them lots of places. So they liked the stories. They said, "Well, this guy, his last name's Strain. He's your master grower. He brought in all the genetics. He's kind of the face of your cannabis brand, not the edibles one up, but the actual flower brand, rather." So they put it forward to the board of directors, and they were the ones who chose that. So they asked me if they could do it, and I said, "Yeah, okay, sure, why not?"
Twist my arm.
Yeah, twist my arm. I said, "What do I get out of it? Do I get some free pizza or something?" Like, yeah, exactly.
So you've alluded to this a little bit, but on your website it says that you mix old school methods with the latest in science. How would you describe what that means?
Perfect. It's really combining people in that way. So the old school methods is me. Mm-hmm. My old school methods of knowing, let's say, pruning, pinching, bending, de-leafing, being able to read a plant. without doing a leaf tissue analysis. So I could maybe come into a grow room and say, there's no air movement in this corner. The humidity is too off. Or these plants aren't quite happy. They're not healthy. I think they're missing this. So my old school intuition, what I did was hire my assistant master grower. His name is Delaney Braystone. And he's the opposite. He's got a 7-year master's degree in plant sciences and biochemistry. So he came from the University of Guelph. He's, a younger guy, 31 or 32 years old now, with a few years of experience in the cannabis growing space, but 7 years spent in university doing tissue culture and biochemistry on plants, etc. So, bringing him on board with me is allowed him and I to basically have these incredibly fun pot-fueled debates when we get blazed and we'll talk science with each other. Because I'm also I really enjoy it, and that's why I built aeroponic systems. I'm more of a nerdy tech grower than a put it in the dirt and throw a light over it type of guy. I really like the science of VPD, of plant steering, whatever, all of it. So by hiring him, he's helped me advance that understanding with the leaf tissue analysis, with virology, tissue culture. So now we have our whole genetic bank backed up in tissue culture because of him. The whole bank got put through tissue culture for a year and now is stored and backed up. And furthermore, all of our seeds that we pop in vitro. So they're actually germinated in vitro right from day one. So they can never be exposed to a pathogen and require cleaning.
And that entire genetic bank, you said you brought over with yourself, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I had a very large genetic bank. Thought it was incumbent on myself, being last name was Strain. I thought it was pretty much my duty to collect strains. So at my shop, let's say I had a nice big shop where I literally just collected mothers and cared for them. And I didn't know about tissue culture. So it was a really pain in the butt, resetting them all the time, carrying them for years. Letting them grow, clone them, restart them, blah, blah, blah. So tissue culture got that off my hands. I brought that in, and again, we've been popping and pheno hunting quite a bit of stuff. We've got the old school stuff. So back to your old school, new school comment is, I got original Pineapple Express. I got the OGs and Death Bubbas and Pre-98 Bubba, Island Rockstar, the old Pink Kush, of course, some blueberries, Northern Lights, that type of shit, right? Mm-hmm. Then I've got all the new, Cannabis 4.0 stuff that came out of Cali, came out of Colorado. So I went on a seed hunting mission. I got a lot of friends down throughout the U.S. Love my American buddies down there, and we collabed and got seeds and traded and bought. And I brought these seeds back here.
When you say your genetic bank is backed up with tissue cultures, what does that mean?
Okay, then what it means is a tissue culture is basically a really small clone. So if you imagine an inch or centimeters guy?
Inch.
Okay, a 1 inch tall clone. Mm-hmm. All right, so you take that off of a plant. It goes through a bleach wash for a precise amount of time at a bleach concentration for surface sterilization. Then it gets placed into a test tube with agar. Agar is a gelatin substance that holds vitamins, minerals, nutrients, everything for the plant to survive. And it gets snapped into a test tube. They're called magenta boxes, I think. But basically, that little clone is placed inside that little magenta box and sealed tight. And this is all done in a lab. So this has to be done in a flow hood and a sealed lab, and I'd be wearing a mask. And it's literally probably level 4 fucking biohazard stuff. Because if anything lands inside that test tube, any mold spore or anything, it cultures and grows inside that test tube. And then you see a week later, your test tube has gray spots of mold all over inside of it, and now it's fucked. So you discard it. But when done right, it's completely sterile. All that lives inside that test tube is your plant. Now, that plant grows very slowly inside the test tube. It grows probably an inch every month, maybe even longer. But what happens is you take it out of that test tube and multiply, and you cut off just the top, you cut off that new growth. So the new apical growth coming out will be free of disease and pathogens, and you can usually outgrow a virus in tissue culture. But really what it does is Once it's established in vitro, it's sterile. Anything that's not part of the plant that will grow in there rapidly, and it'll just be a fungus. It's like an experiment in the back of your fridge. So once you pass the couple week benchmark, you know you have a clean tissue culture plant that grows very slowly that you can now multiply. And what happens is it's stored in these test tubes, away from any other environment. So they're clean. They have no virus, no pathogens, no powdery mildew, no botrytis, no nothing. When we want to restart our mothers, which we do twice a year, we order clean copies from the University of Guelph, and we get these nice little test tube plantlets, and they're like little baby bonsai cannabis plants. You take them out with tweezers, and we start it gently in a new little Rockwell tube until it gets large enough that we can clone off of it and put into our aeroponic system.
With such a vast genetic bank, what would you call your proudest achievement thus far?
Geez, I mean, it's different from what I like to grow versus what I like to smoke. Ironically, our grand creator made all the best weed the most finicky to grow, kind of. So they're really most potent, really banging stuff is also kind of similarly difficult to cultivate. So I'll give you an analogy. Like there was a cultivar here for a long time in British Columbia called BC Big Bud. And that thing would grow, you could do anything to it. It grew huge buds. It was a commercial cultivar. It grew massive buds with very little care. So what's fun to grow is things like that. But, monetarily, their value is useless. And also for smoke, I don't want it. So now, I mean, I grow for terpenes. I don't like this THC chase race that the whole community's got involved with. And now seeing 36 and 38% THC, which is just, well, take that with a grain of salt. I like aromatic rooms, and I like rooms that, because of our indoor growing environment, we're not big on sativa dominant because they stretch a lot. So I want something that stays bushy, medium height, bushy with a good structure that spaces itself out as it grows, so that there's less crop work to do. So ironically, yeah, I mean, now, listen to me, I sound like some corporate now. The big difference when you're growing from a tent in your basement and 6 plants, I don't give a shit. I want to grow something that takes some time, challenge to it. But when you have 8 rooms and thousands of plants and a grow team of staff to manage, you want to minimize crop work that has to happen. So I'm finding cultivars that are 8 weeks or less, non-sativa dominant, so they don't stretch and hit my ceiling because I'm an indoor grower. Those things are best for greenhouses. Leave them in the greenhouse or outdoors. So I guess, yeah, my indica dominant. I love big fat indica leaves. I love those big stanky, greasy indica buds. I do love blueberry. I got to admit, I love old school blueberry just because the nose on it. And I'm a new fan of, I got some rainbow flame, which is just the most dank grass I've ever smoked. It's like the Skittles background to it, and it's just hard to describe, but it's just skunky and dank, and it tastes like it smells. Like when you smoke it, it tastes exactly like it smelled.
Do you still grow at home?
Not anymore.
No.
A year ago, I quit. Actually, a little bit over a year. I just, when you do this all day, when I get home after work, it's like, I'm sure, if you're dating a massage therapist, you're probably unlikely to ever get a massage at home, because that's the last thing you want to do when you get home from work.
No, I understand. It's, I mean, it's one of the good things when you're doing what you love, but, at the end of the day, you don't want to bring your work home with you.
Well, that exactly. And the other biggest reason for it, David, was biosecurity. I could not jeopardize my big licensed cultivation that I work here at for my home grow, where I don't have the biosecurity. What if I were to bring in a thrip or a mite or something, an aphid from home, and I come to work and I'm responsible for an outbreak? It was not worth it for my pound or two of smoke and the aggravation. So no, I did have a tent. I had one LED panel, and I was growing my banana brain. That's the last crop I took down at home, and then I just took it all apart.
So a mutual friend of ours said that you have a quote, you have brilliantly clean procedures.
Oh yeah.
Why are you so strict when it comes to cleanliness, and to what do you attribute, being so regimented when it comes to cleanliness?
Well, it's the nature of our grow system for one, with the aeroponics. Again, we use zero chemicals, pesticides, and everything else. I'm very, very proud of the fact that we pass every crop, every harvest we do here in Canada, we pass with flying colors with microbials, heavy metals, and pesticides, meaning zero. And microbials is the toughest one. Most living soil growers probably know this or would maybe agree with me, but it's really hard to pass microbials testing. Microbials is allowable in Canada up to 5,000 colony forming units. We have less than 10 under the detectable limits every crop. So very clean. We don't use beneficial insects. So a lot of growers use copert or other, they use predator mites or predator insects to go after and they just hang these sachets all over their plants.
Yep.
As a precautionary preventative measure. Well, those insects patrol your plant, but they also defecate. They also piss and shit on your plant.
Mm-hmm.
They also can have offspring. So bottom line is we don't like to put anything on our plants. I love my microbials being zero. We don't have to irradiate our weed ever. Irradiation is something that happens in Canada. I'm not sure if it does in the US, but if you send your cannabis for testing and it's over 5,000 coliform units of bacteria count, then it has to be irradiated.
Mm-hmm.
And that just doesn't even like the sound of that. Who wants to put your weed in the microwave?
Right.
So we don't want to do that. So we keep very clean protocols, partly because of the regime in Canada for Health Canada. Our quality assurance department is really tight as well on it. They're kind of a little zealous, but literally, I could walk around here right now with my camera. You can eat off the floor in here everywhere. There's no dirt, cocoa on the ground. There's no medium hoses all rolled up all the time. I'll take you to the sanitation room. Actually, we have a commercial grade dishwasher in there that sanitizes our parts and pieces. Nice commercial grade sinks. So keeping an aeroponic, if you're going to go into aeroponics, make sure you have a nice sanitation room, because keeping your equipment clean is paramount. You cannot let it degrade or else you'll just ruin your shit. But if you keep it clean, it's not too much work keeping it clean. Cleaning it after it's gone to hell is a lot of work, but keeping it clean isn't so bad. You'll be rewarded with white explosive root growth like that. Those roots, man, they get to that size inside of 2 weeks.
That's incredible.
And once they get to that size of root, when I flip those plants, the growth rate is tremendous. It really is. So we get right to the fun part, right? Basically, we don't have bedrooms that are tied up with long vegging plants. I go right from a little aerocloner. I'm going to take you for a little stroll now.
Okay. Why, while we're headed that way, why did you choose LED lighting?
Well, it was not an easy decision. I'm definitely an old school grower. I preferred HPS. I preferred ceramic metal halide bulbs, etc. I did my diligence for sure. I went through, did a lot of testing. In fact, so in my shop, I tested some fluids. I tested the FOS. I tested the Erics. Tested another one called EcoGrowTech, and I put them up against the industry standard, which is Gavita, a DE 1150. And my yields were as good or better. But the biggest difference, I think, was we did the testing. The THC was higher under the LEDs, and obviously the biggest one is heat. The biggest advantage to me was just simply heat. So when you're designing your HVAC system, you can use, I think, about 30% less HVAC power because you're putting out so much less heat into the room. I definitely chose the FOS A3i for the reason that I can set it and forget it on the ceiling. I don't like raising and lowering all these lights when you got 500 plus lights. Nobody, ironically, has truly designed an awesome light raising and moving system that would be automated or or otherwise. So there's a lot of manual labor there. So FOS A3Is are 1500 watt, tunable spectrum LEDs, and lensed. So they have a nice, good quality lens over each diode cluster, which I found to be important. And again, I went to their factory. Well, sorry, not their factory, because that's in China. But I went down to Las Vegas, Nevada, where their facility was, and I looked at all these. I said, I insist on seeing some grows with them functioning, and talk to the grower. So I spent about 6 months at least, or a year, just sourcing and deciding on which lights to use.
Wow.
But the LEDs, I do like these ones for that reason. They're quite powerful, so I get really good penetration. Again, I set them 4 feet off my plant canopy height, and I don't raise these lights or lower them ever. I turn them up or down from my platform that controls them.
What is it? What is the other equipment that you couldn't live without?
The sanitation room.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sanitation room, the ozone system, the LEDs. Let's see, what other real nifty? I mean, we're really, I really like my new humidification system. We got these dry mist foggers in all the rooms instead of the ultrasonic humidifiers.
Okay.
Which have been a big improvement. I mean, we could talk all day about HVAC systems, so we won't even bother going down that path. The other little cool tool that I like to use that not many other people use is it's called a FLIR One camera. So I use you know what a FLIR is?
Yep.
I use a FLIR camera to look at my crops and my rooms. I can look at leaf surface temperature with FLIRs. I can look at hotspots within the room, and they just plug right into your phone. So it's kind of a freebie tip for all you growers out there. The FLIR camera, you can look at electrical panels with, of course, see if their breakers are heating up. It's just a useful tool, and it's literally $400 or $500 tops. And it plugs into my phone, or I can take photos with it. So measuring leaf surface temperature instead of what a lot of people will use is just those guns, those laser guns. There, the leaf. And then lastly is the sprayer. For spraying, we'd like to do foliar feeding. We apply calcium and some other stuff. So we do a little bit of foliar feeding at times, and we use a electric airless sprayer. So, i.e. a paint sprayer. Okay, literally Home Depot, $700 paint sprayer. You mix up a 5-gallon pail of a spray solution, put that sprayer down with your 50-foot hose, run around your fucking grow room instead of carting around sprayers. Backpack sprayers are bullshit. The other ones are bullshit. The battery power is bullshit. Pump sprayer is bullshit. So that any other growers out there haven't done that, give it a go. You'll love it.
So where were you walking to in the facility?
Oh yeah, I was walking to my sanitation room. Let's see, what else can we show you? I'm going to show you one of my double-deck aero cloners that we're just getting set up right now to fill with clones. That's the all right. I'm not sure about that later. Our vertical or tiered cloner room. This is where we aero clone and veg our plants. So we kind of have a one touch for these. We root and veg in the same location. So they'll go into one of these locations. There's your little neoprene basket and puck. We had these white pucks custom made for us because the ones that come are black. And of course, once I looked at these with my FLIR camera, I was blown away by how much heat they absorb. So we got them in white. So these drop right into this system. And inside we have these custom made lids. And there's a spray bar inside there that does high pressure fog. Maybe not so much fog, but almost fog. It's nearly a dry fog. 200 psi. We're shooting for about a 50 micron water droplet. And what that does is really increase the speed at which you root, and then the health of the roots mass that come off that cloner. They're really explosive, and what happens is you get a lot more of the it's called a trichoblast on the root. The fuzzy part. Have you ever seen the bottom of a rockwool rooted clone and those little white fuzzy hairs that come off a root?
Yeah,
those are called trichoblasts.
Okay.
Trichoblasts are up to 10 to 20 times more effective at absorbing nutrients than a main taproot.
Okay.
Oh, there's my my fogger grenades just kicked in. You can hear them.
Oh, the perfect timing.
Perfect timing. So up there you can see, LED, fixed LED on the roof. Underneath each row here, we have Fos 600-watt LEDs.
Okay. So for this room in particular, how long did it take you to design that room?
This one took the better part of 6 months, probably, because that's custom. All of that, we took the existing Essence single-tiered equipment and we made it into double deck to fit our needs.
Okay.
So it took some trial and messing around because we had to replumb some stuff and make some sensors work. They don't provide high pressure aeroponics. Essence only sells low pressure. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of taken their kit and modified it. So it's utilizing their stuff and their framework, but we had to change a lot of plumbing and a couple sensors and custom made lids. And then we fit now in that room. It's a small room. It's only about 14 feet by 20 feet. We do 1,100 plants in that room.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's only got a footprint of 12 by 20.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So here's my sanitation.
Okay. I wonder if this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You were breaking up for a second. Tell me about the sanitation room.
Yeah. So in the back there, you can see that. So we mix our nutrients. We have a mixer and we mix up our own salts. We don't buy pre-mixed nutrients. We custom formulate ours based on our strains and those beef tissue samples that we take. We make blends, and obviously a lot less expensive than buying pre-mixed hydroponic food. So in behind me here is, I'm just going to keep that door open. Here's our big sink, some racks. Dishwasher, that's our big commercial dishwasher there in the corner. Mm-hmm. That thing gets used a lot. I think it has a name. Somebody's named it, but that's what my grow staff does for fun. A lot of shop vacs, pressure washer, spray bay, dishwasher, sinks. So this room is kind of the heartbeat of the facility in a weird sort of way. I mean, it would have been that a lot of people overlook.
Right.
So it's the thing that a lot of people would overlook designing a facility. I think you can never have too much space. Let's see what other room. The rest of these rooms are all in flower. Down this hallway, so you can see behind me this corridor. There's doors going down each side. So there's 8 flowering rooms in total. Wow. This one actually has some of that. My favorite, the rainbow flame.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Wow. So are you guys constantly expanding, or do you have the footprints that you want right now and you're kind of just using it to its fullest potential?
Sorry, I didn't hear you because it's too loud in that room. What was that?
Oh, no worries. Is Dykar looking to expand its footprint at all, or are you just kind of making sure you fully utilize the space that you have?
Yeah, at the moment we are just fully utilizing the space that we have. Dykar bought their company that came along before. They were around for a couple of years before I came on board. They came to Cranbrook, BC, and bought a very large existing warehouse, 120,000 square feet shell. It's big. And we've got another 80,000 feet in the back that we could expand into.
Oh, well. I know that you were recently in Costa Rica. Was that for business or pleasure?
Oh, that was pleasure. That's just pure pleasure. Yeah, that was just vacation mode. A winter getaway, it's right in the midst of the doldrums here, the short days, the dark, the snow. So 10 days in Costa Rica, on the beach, did some surfing lessons, bought some overpriced weed on the beach several days, drank my pina coladas. That was all vacation.
Okay. Well, I mean, you got to do that when you're anywhere and you're experiencing that long winter. Sometimes you got to go and remember that the sun's still out there.
Oh, dude, exactly. When I'm in here all the time, you can see I'm red from the grow room now, but then I'll go outside, it'll be -10, -20. So these extremes, you go from the humid warmth and you go outside to dark and cold and snowy. So I like to get away. I'm a scuba diving, well, I'm an instructor. So now we're friends, I'll tell you, that's mainly the reason I got into growing weed right there, to afford scuba diving.
Oh, really?
It really is. I was an 18-year-old kid. I was becoming a scuba instructor by 19, and all I could afford was like to, throw a tank in my trunk, and drive out to Vancouver, and jump in the ocean right there. Then I got learn, all the traveling, of course, Mexico, or even better, Fiji, Malaysia, all this stuff. So it was an expensive sport. So I'm like, figure out how can I afford scuba.
I understand that. And you guys, so you're located in British Columbia, specifically, is it the Kootenays?
Yeah, the Kootenays, yeah, which is a really famous region. The Kootenays are a region of British Columbia. It'd kind of be like Humboldt County.
Okay.
Okay, if your analogy was like to California, you might say we're the Humboldt. The most famous town is Nelson, BC. Nelson, BC is pretty much the heartbeat of the best wheat grown. The best growers, the genetics have been there. I mean, they're a long time, and actually, like a lot of it's because of the American war defectors from back long ago that left, and they repopulated in Nelson and grew. They were the hippies that didn't want to go to Vietnam, I think it was, right?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So it's been a famous long-term region of cannabis growers, and the talent is really great there. So we're in that. We're a sister city to them. We're a few hours drive away from Nelson, but yeah, we're the Kootenays, southeast corner of British Columbia, small town. We got a big ass warehouse here. It's probably a pretty good deal on the building. Again, though, I don't know if it's always the best. I think if anybody heard this that could and built from scratch, there's a lot of things you can fix right off the hop without going backwards.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time today, and thank you for the tour too. It was incredible, just getting a little bit more insight into your process, and you're doing just incredible work right now.
Well, thanks a lot, David. I enjoy showing off the aeroponics. I like talking about it. Obviously, I don't really shut up about it much, I'm being told, but to me, it's the best way to grow. It's the most environmentally friendly, if you can call it that, because of our water usage. We don't, we're not drained to waste. We recycle our water. We can even recapture, reclaim it. Although at this moment we're not. We're flushing those tanks down the drain at the end of 10 days after we've utilized them for a while. The cleanliness of it, how we can replicate. Like, for example, growing. You want to go to McDonald's, get a cheeseburger. You know what it's going to be like every time, everywhere. So when we grow a crop, it's the same every time. Mm-hmm. If I grow Pink Kush or my Blue Lights, it's the grow plan that I've written for it, and the environmental factors are all pinpointed. The grow plan tells it what to do. I want this much humidity at this temperature for this long, this much food, this. So really, we're getting very dialed in consistency. Mm-hmm. And our THC ratings prove it. Our THC and terpenes and everything, high and consistent.
Is there anything else that we might have left out, or anything in particular you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience knows about yourself or your work at Dykar?
No, just yeah. Make sure you're having fun doing what you're doing, or else it's a job, right?
That's very true. That's very true. And it's definitely true that you love what you're doing.
It is. I love watching the plants grow, and I love watching them grow at prodigious rates. So that's why I like Arrow, because I like to be able to see the roots. I want to peek under the hood every day. I'm peeking there, and oh shit, look at that. All these roots are growing 6 to 8 inches a day at the beginning. So It's fun getting to watch that part of the plant growth that most can't see and they don't care about or know about. I really am fascinated. I put GoPros into the root chambers before and done time lapse to watch these roots drop and grow in the black.
Well,
so there you go.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think, I lost my train of thought, but I do like aeroponics. Anybody out there wants to consider doing it, it is viable. It's not your cheapest or easiest, but it's the most rewarding. Again, like having a Ferrari, if you have a pilot, a mechanic, and a driver, and the right team behind it, that Ferrari is going to win the race.
That's perfect. Very well said, Jim. And thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. For Jim Strain, master grower with more than 30 years of experience in this business, I'm David Mantey. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.